good place to start is kind of how I define opportunity. And the way that I see that is basically it's a combination of being given the chance to do what you want, but also that once you've been given that chance, being allowed to make your own choices and take your own risks. And I've found myself incredibly, the way that I usually say this is that I find myself incredibly blessed throughout my lifetime. But what I also am kind of starting to come to terms with is how much of that is in spite of a lot of my identities rather than like as a natural part of being a human being. Because like for context here, I'm like a multiply marginalized, like trans, queer, multiply disabled person of color and Muslim in America, right? So there's a whole lot of factors that make me less likely to have access to the same opportunities as other people. And I ran into that a lot growing up, where while I had the good fortune of being poor in a relatively wealthy area growing up, the chances that I was afforded in terms of things like access to college level classes, access to programs for free and reduced lunch, for example, the things that allowed me to stay in school and get access to the resources that were necessary for me to hopefully eventually meet my goals, which were as a child to become an author and later in life making the decision to kind of go into policy and advocacy. Even just like at that basic level from like youth to transition age, a whole lot of me surviving and a whole lot of me being able to get by was based in programs and access that both are unevenly distributed in the US, but also that a lot of activists had to fight for before I was even born, right? And so we get to that point, right? Point A is like having access to resources to begin with that allow me to survive, and also being in kind of the mixed place of not having the chance to be diagnosed with a lot of my disabilities from a young age and coping with a lot of the repercussions of that, but also being given the chances that come with not being pushed to meet the social pressures that people who have disabilities are expected to meet as children. So for an autistic kid, that might look like the pressure to not STEM, the pressure to look and act less autistic, that whole thing. I didn't get that as much, but the reason was largely because I was kind of in this glass closet, right? Where my teachers and my friends and a lot of the people around me were kind of just like, this kid's got something going on. We don't quite know what, and their parents won't like put them in the direction of resources because they're scared it'll mean that they won't have access to the academic resources they need to succeed. So we're just going to kind of pretend nothing's going on here, but also we know something's going on here. So again, we get back into kind of the double edge with opportunity of like chances, but also the repercussions that come with that. And then the piece that you don't have as a kid so much, and we should, but we don't, is kind of the opportunity to make your own choices about what you want to do with those chances, right? Because in terms of things like access to diagnosis, if kids in my district who received a diagnosis of a disability were allowed to continue to pursue college classes, for example, that might not have been such a big deal. But because it was that way and it was structured that way, my parents, who put a really large value on education and academics, is that they didn't want to kind of open up that door. And that's not unusual for a lot of people who have my particular mix of stuff, right? So we've got all of that just burbling to the surface. And then we push over into college, where unfortunately, as a result of negative circumstances with my parents that I won't get into, I got into a lot of colleges but did not receive need-based aid. And I also was not able to get my driver's license. I wasn't permitted to do so. And I ended up being able to go to a public school on a full scholarship other than housing, which I had to work through school to pay for, because purely there was a random autistic trans person who lived on my block who happened to be dating one of my friend's older sisters. And they were willing to sit there and go, you know what? You live relatively close to me, 15, 20 minutes away. I'll pick you up. We'll take you to college and you'll come back with me every day. And if they hadn't done that, if someone in my community hadn't been willing to give me those resources, then the rest of my life just doesn't happen, right? Because I don't graduate college. I don't do advocacy work in college that helps me get my current job. And I don't get access to any of the youth programs like Advocates for Youth or conference presentations, what have you, that helped me gain access to and learn from others in my community and kind of get access to that oral history that I wasn't given growing up, right? And a whole lot of me becoming who I am and having the chances that I do boil down to a series of moments just like that, of individual people in my community being willing to go, you know what, I believe in you. I'm going to take a chance on you, and I'm going to try and put you through to something that can give you the chance to do better. And I've been fortunate enough that because I had resources from point A to point B, to be able to be in a position to take advantage of all of those chances and to work through them and to take the opportunities and to build myself up professionally and interpersonally. But so much of that opportunity is built on chance, and it's built on having at some point been given the option to survive and to focus and to have my own goals, right? And I think about if there was a kid like me who had also grown up in rural North Texas, but was growing up in an area that didn't have free and reduced lunch, or who had more hoops to jump through for that, right? Or who may not have had teachers that were as invested in them as mine were, or who may not have had access to the friend of a friend who happened to be within community and was motivated to get you to college, right? Like at so many points throughout that journey, that opportunity relied on me having had an opportunity before. So it's just all these links in a chain. And if one of them snaps, people who are multiply marginalized can just fall through the cracks. And you have to spend a lot of time working your way back up. And that's not fair to anyone.